channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. Today's Wednesday, and for today's video, I have a couple thrift flips for you guys, plus a little DIY project that I did. I think they all turned out great, kind of went back to fall a little bit, and I hope you guys like them as much as I do, and without further ado, let's get to today's projects. My first project is kind of a simple one. I have a bunch of these wooden blocks that I had painted quite some time ago with White Swan, and then I had sealed them with Big Top and then just set them aside in my stash. I had a bunch of small pieces of a couple transfer sets I had been using, namely the Cozy Comforts and Autumn Splendor transfer sets by Redesign with Prima, and I was so afraid I was going to lose them or ruin them that I decided to grab a few of these blocks, paint them up, and use the transfers on them. So I picked Fancy Farmgirl and Summer Crush as my colors, and I gave each of these blocks 2 good coats of those colors on both sides. Once they were completely painted and the paint was nice and dry, I took them outside and gave them a coat of Rust-Oleum's clear matte spray to seal the paint. This was the quickest, easiest thing I could think of to seal these, and the nice thing about the clear matte spray is it dries pretty darn quick. I did go ahead and let them sit overnight to dry completely so that I didn't run too much of a risk of having my transfers pull up my fresh paint. Then I just went ahead and sorted through the pieces of the transfer sets I had and chose some for each one of the blocks and began just applying them one at a time until I was happy with how each one looked. Transfers are a great way to add a little bit of an artist's touch to something without having to be an artist, which I love. They're simple to apply. You just peel the backer off, lay your transfer down on your piece where you want it, smooth it down, and then use the transfer stick to apply it by rubbing it down into the piece that you're working on while you peel back that piece of vellum. You just have to be slow and patient and make sure that if you do accidentally lift a piece of the transfer, you lay the piece of vellum back down and re-rub that spot until all of your transfer is applied. Then as a last step, in order to protect your transfers, you're going to want to seal them. For these, I just went ahead and went over them again with another coat of the clear matte spray, and then my blocks are done. I love how they came out. I think they'll be a super cute addition to some of my fall displays. Project 2 is honestly kind of an experiment. I was scrolling through the Jamie Ray Vintage YouTube page and I saw a little bird on there that looked like she had painted it gold, and I thought it was cute. So I am trying to replicate that look by using Golden Ticket by DIY. So I went ahead and spray painted my bird first to give it a good coat, not only for the Golden Ticket to adhere to, but just in case I missed a spot or there was a little bit of a color showing through. I wanted it to be this beautiful brown and not the weird colors that the bird was originally. So then I grabbed out my Golden Ticket. Now Golden Ticket is a patina, so it is a seal coat, so you don't need to put any sealer over it. And I did end up going over this bird with 3 coats of the Golden Ticket. Once that was done and it was dry, it was very, very cute, but very shiny. And I decided I wanted to dull it down just a hair. So I grabbed a little makeup sponge I picked up at the Dollar Tree and my Darkened Decrepit liquid patina by DIY. And I pounced some of that Darkened Decrepit over the gold to give it a little bit more age and patina. Now you could keep going with this and make it as dark as you wanted. I really just wanted to dull the gold down just a little bit. And once I was done, I did go over it again with just a little bit more of the golden ticket just to shine it up in a few little areas. In the end, I really love how this bird came out. It'll be perfect for my fall displays and it'll be great for Christmas too. My third and final project is this box that I've had in my stash since last summer. I bought it at a yard sale. I think I paid $2 for it. The paper has already started to peel off of this thing. So you can see there I had peeled some back just to see if it would all come off. And of course it did not, which means I am going to spend some time getting the rest of this paper off of my box. So I began by getting rid of the hinges and taking off the little handle from the top and setting those aside. So my plan to get the paper off was to soak my rag in some hot water and then apply it to the paper and soak it well so that it would hopefully scrape back off again. And this worked to some extent, but it was definitely a way longer process than I had anticipated. It took me almost an hour of re-soaking and scrubbing and scraping, and I even broke out my steamer to try and help get the stupid paper off of this box. I actually ended up taking it to my sink and soaking it with some hot water and then bringing it back to my table, scraping, taking it back to the sink, bringing it back and scraping, and then wiping some off until I finally had all of the paper removed. Then, of course, I realized the glue had left behind kind of a residue, so I went ahead and grabbed my crud cutter and gave it a really good bath. I wiped down the inside and the outside, set it aside to dry, and then it was finally time to move on to painting. For this, I chose Sweet Pickins Milk Paint in the color Truffle, which happens to be their color of the month, so it is on sale. I have it available on my website, and that's www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. I mixed up my milk paint with Extra Bond just because I didn't want any chipping or cracking on this piece. I was a little worried because both of the finishes from the front and the sides were a little bit different, and I ended up giving this 3 good coats of the milk paint. Now I ran into some issues and I ended up with a little bit of bubbling in the veneer on the front of this. So I ended up having to cut that with a razor blade, spread it apart just a little bit and get some wood glue in there, clamp it down, and then once that was done, I filled in the gap with a little bit of putty and let that dry. And then you saw me there just sanding that back smooth again and then giving it a coat of shellac before I moved on to my second coat of paint. The top also needed a little bit of glue, so I used some Titebond Quick and Thick, spread that into the little crevice with a paintbrush, and then used my clamps to clamp it down and set it aside to dry. While the top was drying, I moved on to painting the inside of the box just to give it a good clean coat of fresh paint. And for that, I'm using Weathered Wood by DIY. Now, thankfully, since the inside of this box was originally black, it only took me 1 coat of the Weathered Wood paint to cover it up. Then I moved on to the decor piece I'm going to be using on the front of the box, which is this Decor Poly by Redesign with Prima called Deco Accent. I went ahead and gave it a good coat of weathered wood as well and set it aside to dry. Once my glue was dry and I could take my clamps off, I went back to the top of the box and started painting the area I wanted to add some decoupage paper to. For the paint on this, I'm using the Cottage color called White Linen by DIY. The thing I like about using the Cottage colors under my decoupage paper is that there's a built-in sealer, so I don't have to worry about reactivating the paint with my decoupage medium and accidentally having some of that white leach into my paper. And also I like using a light color because it helps make the images in the decoupage paper stand out. Now, you guys, this is the box of many steps. So while the lid was drying, I moved on to sealing the inside of the box and, of course, the bottom of the box. And for that, I'm using DIY's Big Top. I like Big Top because it's a nice, durable, hard sealer. It gives a really good protection, and I thought it was the best option, especially for the bottom of this box. And again, I'm just very carefully sealing only the weathered wood portions of my box. Then it was back to the little decor piece I'm going to be using on the front of my box. This again is one of the new Decor polys by Redesign with Prima. And I dipped my brush very lightly into the remnants of my Truffle milk paint and then wiped back almost all of it. And then I'm just dry brushing some of that truffle onto this poly. Then it's back to the lid again. It's time to cut out the piece of decoupage paper I need for the portion of the lid I want to cover. And for that, I'm using this absolutely gorgeous new fiber paper by Redesign with Prima called Whispering Windfall. So I measured the size that I needed and cut out a strip of the paper, and then I decided exactly which part of the paper I wanted to use for the top, cut it to length, and then I began the decoupage process. I am using liquid patina by DIY to lay my paper down, and I'm just beginning by spreading a good even coat of that at one side of my box lid, and then spreading my paper down onto, or smoothing my paper down onto that medium. And then once I have a portion down, I'm just working my way across the top of the box, just laying another strip of that liquid patina down and then smoothing my paper out over it. Once the paper is completely applied, it's time to go over it with another coat of the liquid patina. I like to use a pretty liberal coat over this more thick fibrous paper. It definitely helps keep it in place and smooths it out a little bit so that it doesn't feel rough when it's finished. Then I decided to go ahead and add a little bit more interest to the front of this box. I would add a stencil. So I grabbed this beautiful stencil by Redesign with Prima. This one was curated by Cottage. I believe it's called Anissa. And I am just pouncing a little bit of golden ticket on this stencil using a makeup sponge. I'm not trying to get perfect coverage. I just wanted a hint of gold behind the decor piece that I'm going to be putting down over it. Once that was done, it was finally time to glue down my decor piece. And for that, I'm using some Titebond Quick and Thick, just putting a little bit of that on the back of this and then spreading a nice thin layer all over the back of this decor poly. Then I just centered it up and pressed it down onto the front of my piece to apply it. While that dried, I went ahead and gave the hardware a good coat of Rust-Oleum Vintage Gold Metallic Spray, just to make them match a little bit better with the other gold touches on this piece. Then my lid was dry enough so that I could remove the excess decoupage paper from both sides. So I'm just using some 150 grit sandpaper, and in a downward sweeping motion, I am sanding off that excess paper. Then it's time to seal the milk paint portion of my project. And for that, instead of going with an oil wax, I am using DIY's waxes. I'm starting with a coat of clear wax. I'm putting that over not only the milk paint, but the decoupage paper as well. I find that a coat of clear wax over the decoupage paper helps a lot of the fibers kind of lay down and just gives it a softer, smoother feel. So I'm just applying that clear wax with a soft bristle brush all over the piece, and then using a dry shop towel to wipe back any excess wax. Once I've completely finished going over the entire piece with the clear wax, I move on to DIY's dark wax. Now I'm only going to be applying the dark wax to the details of this piece and along the outside edges, just to add a little bit of patina and some shadowing. So I run it along this far detail, and then I'm just shadowing in around the outside edges of the box, just using almost a dry brush technique with that dark wax, and in a swirly motion, just pulling it out to where I want it. On the lid, I used it to go along the edge of the decoupage paper where there was still a little bit of the white shining through, and this helped mute that and cover it up a little. I just worked my way all the way around the box with that dark wax, and then when I was finished with the back and the sides, I worked a little bit on the medallion on the front, just adding some dark wax around the edges to give it a little bit of a shadow, and then adding some dark wax to the medallion itself. Once I was done with that, I wiped back the excess very gently with a shop towel. And as a last step, I went ahead and added a touch of Eternal Gold wax by Redesign with Prima. This is one of their decor waxes that I absolutely love, and I'm just applying a little bit of that with my fingertip. All that's left to do is add the top handle, and this box is done. I love how it came out, and I hope you guys do too. From here for today, you guys. I hope you liked my return to fall, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I would really love it if you would subscribe to my channel and then just hit the little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then please remember to drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of today's projects. Quick reminder too, the paint and products you saw me use, including those really cool new decor polys, can be purchased through me at my website, and that's www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. I did receive my Sweet Pickins Milk Paint order a couple days ago, as well as my Redesign with Prima order. So many of the items that have been out of stock for a little while are now back in stock. And of course, I did get some of those decor polys in, so check those out too. Anyway, let's see, for Saturday's video is probably going to be some sort of a thrift flip again, so I hope you'll join me for that. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, and I'll see you back here on Saturday. Bye.